We met last year at the Web Summit, and I knew from our discussion straight away that I wanted to have her on the show. So, with that being said, Thalita, welcome.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you for having me here.
Excited to get into it. So before jumping into more specifics on, HubSpot and your courses, take us back. I'd love to hear sort of what you were doing in your professional career before creating courses, before being a consultant, and sort of, understand a little bit more about that progression to this point today.
Sure. So before getting into online courses, I was working as a marketer. I spent most of my career working in-house for marketing teams. I transitioned to working as a consultant more or less when COVID started. And that's when I got into online courses as well. Actually, my first online course was a COVID project, as fun as it sounds. How we all had a lot of time in our hands. I decided to, give it a go, and I published my first online course, more or less in the second semester of our COVID crazy times. Yeah, so this is it. I work with HubSpot, as you mentioned, and marketing automation. So inside of digital marketing, you have different fields you can specialize in. My area of expertise is marketing automation, which is basically the use of technology to automate marketing tasks. For instance, suppose you go to a website and you send a message through a contact us form. You receive an automated email saying, thank you for contacting us or something like that. So this is marketing automation in action, right? There is not, there's no one behind the computer like waiting for new messages, manually replying them. It's actually an automated process. And for that, I use a platform called HubSpot, which I specialize in. Yeah.
Nice. And for our audience who have not used HubSpot before and dived into the world of marketing automation, tell us a little bit about the application, sort of some of the core functionality, and I guess where you specialize in teaching as well.
Sure. So HubSpot is an all-in-one business platform. It started out as a marketing automation platform, as a CRM and marketing automation platform, and it expanded into a sales platform, a customer support platform. So there are features for different types of teams inside HubSpot. HubSpot is strong on marketing automation, which is, kind of this types of processes that I was just talking about. So you can create workflows to automate marketing tasks. It has a CRM as well, an inbuilt CRM, which is different than other marketing automation platforms like Salesforce, for example. So where, you have to connect different apps to make the magic happens. Inside HubSpot, you have everything in one place only. And in terms of which feature inside HubSpot I specialize in, that would be then the automation section of HubSpot, which is where you can create this cool workflows to automate tasks and save time with marketing. So I guess that's HubSpot is it's more popular for small to medium-sized businesses, so it's still growing into the enterprise market. I guess that's HubSpot in a nutshell.
Yeah. And in your early career when you were first working with HubSpot in your jobs, what sort of projects were you working on? And I guess today, what sort of freelance projects do you do at this point, if you're still doing any? Walk us through a little bit of the specifics there.
Sure. So I actually got into HubSpot because I focused mainly on inbound marketing throughout my career. So I've always been involved in inbound projects. You know how in marketing you can specialize in paid ads, you can specialize in SEO, you can specialize in email marketing. And I've been more or less focused in the inbound marketing field. And HubSpot in itself is an inbound first tool. So the platform was built in a way that it's built upon the inbound marketing framework, right? So that's how I got into it. In terms of why, I guess I decided to specialize in HubSpot. It happened more or less like by accident. So in 2018, I worked for a startup in Australia, actually, in Sydney.
Nice.
I worked for a startup in Sydney where they were using HubSpot. I had no idea what even HubSpot was. And my boss at the time came to me and said, Thalita, we want you to find out how to use HubSpot. And I'm like, sure, that sounds great. I looked at it and I'm like, okay, where do I even start? It's a little bit of a complex platform. So you start learning more with practice. And yeah, and then after that, I got another job where they were also using HubSpot. And then I started consulting, also for HubSpot projects. In terms of what I do as a consultant, I still provide HubSpot consulting services. I basically help, businesses use HubSpot better. So typically a client comes to me, they just signed up to HubSpot and they go, okay, we have this tool, we don't know what to do with it, help us. And that's where I come in. I look at their CRM, I help them optimize processes and automate things. That's that's
And
basically.
and those clients that do sign up to HubSpot, like what's the main reason that they're signing up? Have they just like heard about it from a like recommendation, or is it like we need to manage our customer base better, or is it more around automation? Like what are the main reasons they actually sign up for? And then I guess they get to that point where they say, okay, we've got it now. How do we actually use it? Yeah, I'm curious to hear what their motivation is to get signed up.
Yeah, sure. So the main reason would be really to have everything in one place only. When a business starts hosting their email list in a CRM, new needs arise, right? So you have your CRM, then you want to start doing lead segmentation, then you want to start doing automation, but then you might need the sales guy to look at the CRM and tell you if the profiles are okay, if we need to segment leads in a different way. And so you start getting a bigger demand for more features around that system, and that's really the main reason why businesses start using HubSpot. Of course, you also have businesses that are are, let's say, passionate about automation. They want to automate all their processes, and HubSpot is great at that specifically. So that there is really kind of many different reasons, but that would be the main one, I guess. So the need for having everything in one place only.
Hmm.
With integrations, sometimes it's a little bit of a mess when you have to integrate a CRM with an external form system or an external email marketing platform. Sometimes it can get to a point where things don't really connect as expected, and
Yeah.
so there's the advantage of having everything in one place only. Yeah.
And now, you've obviously been teaching on Udemy for a while, over 10,000 students sort of gone through there, and your other courses as well. Tell us a little bit now about, the people that are taking your courses. Who are they? Are they, business owners themselves, or are they more or less people that have worked in a company and they're using the platform? Yeah. Who are the students that you serve most at the moment with your courses?
Sure. So for my courses on Udemy, most of my students are marketing professionals that need to learn HubSpot for their work, for their jobs. And I'll also have business owners who just signed up to HubSpot and want to learn how it works. Most of my students are really professionals working at businesses, and either
Hmm.
their manager told them, hey, you have to go and learn HubSpot, or it comes from themselves where they go, okay, I need to get that skill for my job. And then eventually I'll have marketing consultants as well. So people who are thinking about, offering marketing automation with HubSpot as a service. That those would be the three main groups of students.
Got you. Cool, cool. And I'm really curious to hear more about this. And we already chatted a little bit about it at Web Summit. But
Mhm.
the transition from sort of working, in a full-time job to then consultant, freelancer, now sort of educator, because I went through that transition as well. And actually in my, I guess, career, I sort of tried to put the freelancer before the full-time in some ways, and I sort of, the early days of my freelance career were sort of quite up and down in terms of clients coming and going, and sort of just some form of predictability, and then going back to full time, having a full time job, and then wanting to go freelance, but trying to pick that right time and basically take the leap is, it's a big decision. It's scary. It's unpredictable. So yeah, I'm curious to hear about that transition for you. Was there a lot of doubts in the early stages? Like, did you know you wanted to go, like when did you decide that you wanted to go freelance? Why did you want to do it? And yeah, talk us through that
Yeah.
transition.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it was a journey full of ups and downs. So most of my career I spent working in house for marketing teams. So I was so used to the office day to day, 9 to 6. Just having a team, coffee chats, right? That kind of office vibe. When we moved to Portugal, I moved to Portugal with my boyfriend. We This was like 6 months before COVID started. I was, we were, of course, in a new place. He had a job already. I didn't. So I started looking for jobs and I applied at local companies and I was just about to start a new job. This is the most frustrating part of it. I was about to start a new job at a startup incubator. And then, of course, COVID turned the world upside down. And I was like, well, that didn't happen. So I didn't start working at that company. They told me, Thalita, look, we will have to change our plans because we have a pandemic going on. So this was when I actually started looking into freelance, mainly because we were in that situation where looking like actually, it's crazy to say this looking back, but really going to an office and doing a job interview wasn't really possible anymore out of a sudden, right? So I started looking into freelance platforms. I created a profile on Upwork and everything started from there. Thankfully, I was able to leverage some of my old contacts, so people that I've worked with in the past. So this is how I got my first project. So this was really, really amazing. I'm very grateful for that. But yes, I was full of doubts. I didn't really know how to talk about myself, how to explain to people what I did. I didn't really know how to do my own personal branding, how to sell my services. It's really a different skill set that you have to have. And I sort of learned on the go. I did some online courses on the topic. I talked to people who were doing it, but yeah, you learn by doing when you need it, right?
For sure.
So yeah, then I started freelancing. Since the beginning, my freelance projects were all around HubSpot and marketing automation. I wanted to leverage that aspect of my expertise. And that's actually maybe interesting to mention as well. So I considered just, freelancing in digital marketing as a general field, right? But I realized that the more generic you go, the higher your competition is. So I, if I would have gone in that direction of just applying for general digital marketing projects, I would be competing with so many people, right? Now, if you start going niche, if you start, focusing on one aspect of your expertise, then it's much easier to get clients. This is one thing I learned in the beginning of my freelance career. So yeah, and then, as I mentioned before, we had so much time in our hands. One of the projects that I was working with was for a company that was working with course creators. One of their main target audiences was course creators. And at the time I was like, course creators, what do you mean? Like, do people make money with online courses? Like, I was completely new to the topic. I had absolutely
Well,
no idea. And I met course creators online, of course, during COVID, and that's how I got into online courses, and that's how I got introduced to this entire new world for me.
okay.
So that's it, yeah. And I
So
decided to
you were
publish my first course.
so you were meeting them and speaking with them for your previous job, and that's when you started to realize, oh wow, there's this whole world I don't know about. Maybe I could create my own course. Is that what happened?
Exactly. This is exactly what happened. So I met up with an
Okay.
instructor online at one point, and they were telling me about their day-to-day lives, and I'm like, wow, that sounds like the dream. You work with your creativity, you help people at the same time, you get to choose your own working hours, which I kind of had already working as a freelancer, but still, as a freelancer, you have client meetings, you have to have a specific schedule. Yeah, and that's how I got introduced to this world, and it was so exciting to see this. And I published my first online course, and yeah, that's how it started.
That's cool. And where did you host your first course?
So my first course was on Udemy, mainly because this instructor at the time told me, yes, Udemy sounds like a great channel for the type of courses you want to sell, which in my case, marketing and technology is really a strong focus of Udemy nowadays, and still is. Of course, there are marketplaces for all types of fields. Really, if you think about it, there are marketplaces that are a little bit more specific towards creative courses, others, business courses, and so on. So I went for Udemy because of that, mainly my niche. Yeah. So
And
that
yeah,
was
and that's a really interesting topic because I know you've seen both sides of this coin is the self-hosting your own courses versus marketplace, platforms like Udemy, for example, Skillshare. Yeah, I guess walk us through, or I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinion on the differences between those and why you decided to go marketplace versus self-hosting in the beginning. But then I know you have self-hosting, some self-hosted courses now. So yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts about the differences between the two.
Sure. I look at this as really two different ways of working with the same thing. It's almost like two different types of work at all, because and we call them self-hosted. Just for the sake of simplicity, I'll call them self-hosted courses. You have your course on your website and you're marketing your own course, right? Now that versus working with a marketplace, what are the main differences? So in a marketplace like Udemy, Skillshare, and Open Sesame, CyberU, Coursera, these are all marketplaces. The main thing is that you don't do your own marketing, right? So a marketplace is typically selling your course for you. This has the good side and the bad side. Let's talk about the good side first, and then we'll talk about the bad one. So the good side is, of course, if you don't have an email list, if you don't have a previous audience, you don't really have a big social media following or something like that. You don't really have an audience yet. It's a great way to get started, because you're exposed to a marketplace that has that audience or that advertises to that audience for you. So that's a great way to get started when you're still building your online presence. And that's one of the reasons why I went for this as well. Just the fact that at the time I didn't really have a strong social media presence, and in fact I'm still building my presence on YouTube and LinkedIn and so on. Now, of course, the other good side of it is that you can be a little bit more hands off. So one thing I think about is, if I decide to randomly do a backpacking trip and spend 3 months hiking in the Himalayas or something, I still have that passive income coming on a monthly basis, which is great. Depending on your life situation, this is exactly what you want to go for. Someone who just had a child, or you're moving to a different country, right? So many different life scenarios you can have. So these are the good sides. Now, the bad sides, of course, because they are doing your marketing, you pay them a commission on course sales. Now, every platform has their own commission, and it really depends on how they sell your courses. On Udemy, for example, the course fee comes from whether they sold your course on Facebook or via affiliate marketing or other channels. So it really depends on that. But yes, you in simple words, you're giving them a chunk of your course sales, which might be not interesting for some people, right? So that would be definitely the downside. The other aspect is that typically, it depends a lot on marketplace to marketplace as well, but typically for the major marketplaces, you don't really have access to your student email addresses. And email marketing is a strong channel for selling online courses. So that is a little bit problematic. But you can still leverage marketplaces as a lead generation tool by using workarounds. So, one thing I do on Udemy, for example, and that's completely, within the rules. It's really by leveraging we have like a marketing, kind of an email marketing feature inside the Udemy portal, which you can use to communicate with students. It's kind of difficult to explain. Maybe it sounds abstract, but basically you don't see people's email address. You have a UI for sending an email, but you don't see the database itself.
Yep.
So you can do that, and you can redirect people to your website. You can redirect people to marketing materials, and so that's how they can come to you.
And that's within the terms that it's okay to, if they've bought your course and you can communicate through there, you can say, hey, I think you might like this over on my website, and drop them the link to your website. That's okay.
You have to make it in an educational way. So for example, on Udemy, we have something called the educational emails. And I think you can send up to 4 a month or something like that. But basically, you can redirect people to an educational asset, and you can place a CTA in that educational asset. So usually what I do is I send people to blog posts, and then at the end of the blog post, there's a call to action. Hey, check out my online course on XYZ. So you can do that. It's totally inside the rules. But it's still, there is like a mental obstacle to it, right? So people have to go to your website, they have to get to know you, and then they're going to click on your CTA, and then maybe they'll sign up. So you're adding extra layers to that process, which could have been a much more direct process when
Yeah.
you have a Facebook ad or something going on, and people go directly to the landing page and sign up. So it's basically adding an
Yeah.
extra layer of complexity to the process. But
Yeah.
still, it's still definitely a good lead generation tool.
No, that's super,
This would be
super
the main
cool.
differences. Hmm.
Yeah, super interesting to hear because, in the agency for us, most of our clients, have started, by building their audience first. So whether that's on YouTube or Instagram or, building their email list, building their blog traffic, and they've sort of went that direction first, like sort of audience first, and then, created a course to sell to that audience. So it's really cool to hear this other progression that you can take of, starting with, hey, I've got expertise, I've got a course, but I don't have an audience yet. So
Hmm.
that's where the marketplaces are a great place. And it sounds like you're also building your audience by getting on there as well, because, as you said, the lead generation, you said people are sort of reaching out to you on LinkedIn. You've gotten projects from what you told me, like through this by people, contacting you. So that's really, really cool. Obviously, there's the, as you said, the costs associated with it, and maybe you give up a bit of your control and a bit of that ability to remarket to them through email marketing. But it sounds like there's a lot of pros to it as well. Like you've got a full-time marketing agency essentially doing all your marketing for you and promoting your course all the time. So I think that's really cool for because I know in some ways, we've heard different opinions on this of people saying, I love marketplace, and some online course, people in this space are sort of saying, don't go down that path and stuff. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's great to hear that, it's not just so black and white like that. It's cool to hear.
Absolutely. Yeah. One thing I
Yeah.
tell people, I think, people, as you said, they feel very strongly about this. They're either
Yeah.
in favor or completely against. And in my opinion, they can work together. So
Yeah.
think of a marketplace as really an awareness channel where you can get that first audience. You can leverage your own personal branding. You can show your expertise, and you can get into get exposed to that audience in the first place.
Yeah.
It's in the same way that you would leverage social media or ads, or so it is kind of a awareness channel in that aspect. It has its challenges, like with everything else in life, but I think both can work in combination. So if you see this as a tool really for your own marketing, and then send people to your website, and then that's where they that's where they can sign up for more offers and stuff like that. They can perfectly work well in combination, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And on the other side of that now, like building your audience, like what are you doing these days in terms of, I know you've got some stuff on YouTube and LinkedIn. Yeah, what are you sort of focused on this year for building up your audience yourself on your own terms, let's say?
Yeah, I started to finally take YouTube seriously. With
Nice.
YouTube, in social media in general, it's that kind of thing where you start, and in the beginning you're all excited, publishing every week, and then you can get to a point where you're like, okay, I need time, I need to allocate enough time for it and resources and so on. I am starting to take a serious content scheduling, take it in a serious way. This is what I mean. And so that's YouTube, and then LinkedIn as well. Those are my main two kind of awareness channels in that aspect. Building a community, I think, is all about kind of being out there for your students. And I see that happening on YouTube. I see that happening on my LinkedIn profile. I see that happening on even via email in a certain way. So I'm looking to kind of put people in a group. I still haven't figured out how exactly I should do it. I know that there are kind of group community building platforms like Circle and others similar to that. So that's my probably my next step is really to find a way to build a community from that. I think once you have a community, you have a very strong marketing channel as well, because
Yeah.
you don't really have to kind of convince people that you're an expert over and over again, right? They are there, they know you, they trust your work, and so I definitely see the potential in leveraging communities, and that's what I want to go for this year as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And just on the community side, like, what platforms have you considered? You mentioned Circle. I know schools popping up a lot more as well. We've obviously got the Facebook groups still popping up here and there. Yeah. Have
Yeah.
you sort of went down that rabbit hole yet and thought about where you want to host or build that community, like what and the differences between the platforms?
Yeah, I started looking into it. I went from everything from Slack to Discord and Circle and all the other platforms in between.
Yeah.
I really haven't got to the point where I signed up to something and I created a group yet. So I can't kind of tell much more on that, but I'll definitely look into it more and start working with this, because I think right now one challenge that I'm having is, and I have no problem in being transparent about it, is that my students are kind of all over the place. I have some
Yeah.
people that talk to me via email. I have some people that talk to me on LinkedIn. Some people, I've had meetings with them, and they have, my WhatsApp number and everything. So I have students in all places, YouTube channel, and I really want to centralize the whole thing, and
Yeah.
that's why I started looking into communities. It's one challenge to be overcome. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, and I know like WhatsApp groups are sort of floating around more and more now as well. I've heard people having a lot of success with those. So, another one for you to consider.
For sure, one more to the
Yeah,
list.
yeah, exactly. As part of your research. The next thing I wanted to ask you was in terms of, the students that have gone through your courses, what has led to the most success for them in terms of, the courses that you've created? Yeah, what is in your courses that has led to them, succeeding in their career in the HubSpot challenges, let's say? Yeah, would be curious to hear what's worked well for you there.
Sure. So it's actually interesting to talk about it. HubSpot themselves, they have an online university, and they have courses about HubSpot, and they have courses about inbound marketing, sales, and other kind of business related topics. But their courses are much more into the theory of things. So they talk a lot about, the inbound methodology, and they talk about sales and sales alignment, but they don't go into specifics as far as how to use HubSpot and how to operate properties and create emails and use the CRM, like really specifics. They're starting to do more of that, but until some time ago they didn't. And I guess that is the main USP in terms of what I'm bringing to the table, is really the fact that I'm putting myself in the students' shoes and thinking, okay, someone who saw this for the first time, what do they think? Like, what are all these things here in this menu? What does contacts even mean? So I really did this exercise for each and every course. I did this exercise of putting myself in people's shoes and really thinking, what is the experience of working with a platform that you might not fully understand? And also using real world examples. So in every single course, I'm always using examples in terms of, suppose stuff that I say, like, suppose that your manager asked you to create a report on, conversion between awareness and interest. The way you would do that
Hmm.
inside HubSpot is you would come here and you would click on that and blah, 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 blah. So I'm trying to bring that reality to
Hmm.
the course experience, which is something that, I think that's what I'm trying to do differently in what I
Yeah,
do. Yeah,
yeah.
I think those
No, that's
are
awesome.
the.
That's
Mhm.
awesome. Yeah, I can imagine there's a lot of theory that gets thrown out. Like, empathizing, I guess, with the platforms themselves, trying to, educate everyone on how to use it can sometimes be a bit difficult to have these real world examples. But for sure, it's cool then that you're able to, take what they've sort of created and create very, very specific examples that, based on your own work. And yeah, I can imagine students learn a lot quicker once they go, okay, this specific situation, here's what I'm
Yeah.
going to do, as opposed to just the general theory about it. So, no,
Yeah.
that's really cool. And I would love to hear, obviously you've got all the skills yourself. Like, how are you using those HubSpot skills and functionalities in your online education business today? I would love to hear that.
Yeah. I think the way I translated my HubSpot expertise into online courses is by, I guess, being flexible. That's, so platform, HubSpot in itself is a platform that is constantly evolving. They literally change their UI, every month or so.
Oh God.
And it can be overwhelming when you're using HubSpot, or when you're using HubSpot for a client or at a job or something. You look at it and you log in and it's like, well, things are looking differently here. So you have to be flexible if you're using marketing automation platforms. And I wanted to translate that flexibility to my approach of creating courses. Because the way I see it is that when you're creating a course, you have to play so many different roles, right? You have to plan, you have to outline the content, you have to record the content. So there's another role there of like being the presenter, or and then more often than not, you have to be the video editor as well, and you have to be the customer support of the students. There's so much stuff you have to do. So
Yeah.
really, that aspect of being flexible in how I deal with it, that was the main aspect that I wanted to translate from my HubSpot expertise to creating courses. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Really cool. And sort of pivoting a little bit more again, I would be curious to hear, like, what do you love most about teaching online? Because a lot of people are curious about it. A lot of people are currently doing it, or are teaching in a different capacity, but maybe not online yet, and they're thinking about doing that. And of course, we often hear about all the benefits to it, and a lot of the really cool stuff. So I'd love to hear, what do you love most about it, and maybe also what are some of the downsides as well, like just to hear both sides of the experience of teaching online.
Sure, sure. So the way I see my work is really that type of work that aligns with my mission statement in life. I read this book some time ago, an excellent book called The Seven Habits of Highly Efficient People, highly
Great
effective
book.
people.
Highly
And
effective. Yeah.
I one of the habits is really around having your own mission statement, right? And I created my mission statement when I read that book, and I realized that um, something that I feel strongly about is that I want to help people grow, and I want to inspire people by being creative, by expressing myself in an authentic and creative way. And online courses for me is the real world expression of that. It's really my way of kind of putting that mission statement to work. So it's really my passion to help people, and to help them perhaps go well in a job interview, or get a better job, get a promotion, or find a
Hmm.
job because they have a HubSpot skill or something like that. So that difference that I'm making in people's life is really the best aspect of this course. I very often get emotional when people send me emails saying, just so they know, your tutorial helped me go well in a job interview or stuff like that. That's really the main aspect of what I do. Really, that's kind
Yeah.
of the reason really why I wake up every morning and I start recording this courses. So that's
Yeah.
the main best side of it. Of course, if you go into
Yeah.
practical terms, it's great to work with online courses because you do have a lot of flexibility, right? If you're unless you have a big team where you have to have time commitments and stuff like that. If you're doing this by yourself, you can still manage your own day in a way that is good for you. You can be very flexible with your time. Sometimes I'll take a few days off just because, right, I want to go on a trip or I want to do something else. So you have that time flexibility that you don't necessarily have on a full-time job.
Yeah.
It's usually not. It's a more stacked thing, right? Now, I guess the downside of being an online course creator is the fact that still it's online. So I think nothing substitutes being with someone,
Mm.
in the same physical space, right? It's completely different. I
Yeah.
do feel sometimes that I would love to just, have kind of I don't know if local workshops or things that make me engage with the community in a physical way, right? So I can be there and I can teach directly and I can answer questions on the go, and it's a whole different experience. Yeah,
Yeah.
online courses are still online. That's that's what I'd say.
100%. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I mean, we didn't even speak about this, but I also feel the same way. Working online for now 6 years plus, I'm getting to the point where I miss a little bit of the commute to the office.
Yeah.
Having a coffee on break, going to lunch with people, just a bit of the office antics. Of course, there's a lot of downsides, and don't miss the rigidness of it, and a little bit of the inefficiencies that happen in a lot of offices, but certainly miss the social aspect. And
Mhm.
you and I spoke last year at Web Summit. We're both based here in Lisbon. We
Yeah.
both work in the online education space. So yeah, we're going to be still keen on doing this. Is creating some form of meetup and event that we can do here in Lisbon for people in this space or people curious about it. Because also that's something I'm looking at in my own life, in the work life, of like, just getting more in-person contact. Of course, it's great to chat online, and we're doing our podcast here remotely, even though we're based in the same city, and that's really cool and everything. But for sure, I do miss a little bit of that in person, exposure and experience. So looking forward for us to organize that.
Amazing. Yeah, we'll organize this. I think it'll be amazing. And it's crazy to say, but in Lisbon nowadays, well, we have such a growing community of people doing all sorts of things, projects, entrepreneurship, and content creation, but still we don't really have a cohesive group that meets to talk about those things, right? Creating courses or creating content online. So that's what we're set to change.
That's what we're going to do it. So if you're listening and you're in Lisbon, keep an eye out for our next event. We're gonna want to have you there.
Exactly. Join us for a coffee. Yes.
So just to wrap up, for any of the listeners out there that are thinking about getting into online education or have just started, maybe they've released their first course, what advice would you give to them?
Mm-hmm. I think I have 3 tips for someone getting started with online course. So the first one is the one that definitely made the biggest difference in my journey, is really to go niche. When you're trying to create courses on topics that are too generic, you'll be competing with a lot of people. If you're talking about marketplaces, you'll be competing with literally thousands of instructors. So try to go niche. There are creative ways you can go niche even if you're working with a generic topic. So just to give you an example, let's say you're creating courses on content marketing or something like that. You can still go niche by saying, okay, I want to have a content marketing course for SaaS businesses, a content marketing course for small business owners, a content marketing course for people working at a business, or you can work with different types of audience in a way that you can choose that specialization in your niche. So there are creative ways you can go niche, and so there's so many tools that you can leverage to find your niche as well. But definitely go niche, and don't go for topics that are super competitive and generic. That's the one that definitely made the biggest difference for me. I think the second tip would be patient. It's a process. When you start creating courses, it's often that you fall into this trap of, where are the results? When am I gonna get rich and buy a yacht? And things don't happen this way. Everything takes time. You have to be patient. You have to give it enough time. Building an audience takes time. Putting a course out there takes time. So definitely be patient with the process. And to finalize, my third tip is really do more of what's working. So sometimes you do stuff because you saw about it online and you think it's a great idea, and then you realize they actually might not work for you. And one example could be, someone said you should be in all social media channels at the same time. Well, I would go against this opinion. I would say go for those channels that are really working for you. So once you identify that one channel that is working for you, whether it's Instagram or Facebook, or even not a social media channel, another channel, email marketing, whatever, focus on what's working, and don't spend too much time doing things just for the sake of doing them, just because people online are saying that you should do it, or friends are saying you should do it. So definitely focus on those things that are actively bringing results and revenue and students and so on. Those are my 3 tips.
Awesome advice. Well, look, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. It was really great to finally make this happen, and super looking forward to our event in Lisbon, and keeping in touch here. For anyone that's listening and interested to learn more about you or your courses, where should they go?
They should go to my website. So that's Thalita Milan, Thalita with TH, thalitamilan.com. This is where I publish all my latest resources and courses and news and updates and things like that. I'm also on LinkedIn, same thing. So you just search for Thalita Milan and I'll be there, and I'm happy to connect. And thanks for having me. That was really cool to be here.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, thank you so much. It was great to have you, and yeah, speak to you soon.
Thanks, Marty. Speak to you soon.